Bitcoin has been stuck in a ranging market for the last couple of days. In this video, we're going to be jumping down into the most recent movements for BTC and taking a look at what we think is likely to happen next. As I get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, hit that like button. We do appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, subscribe by tapping the bell and selecting all the notifications. You will not miss another video update. If you haven't yet joined us in Discord, though, guys, check it out. Linked in the description down below. It's a fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free, and I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you find down there. It is the first place that we go to notify you of everything that's going on in the crypto space, so why not check it out. Let's make a start with this one though. We'll keep this nice and brief. We'll keep it to the point as much as possible. Here we have Elliott wave theory, and it's basically given us an indication that we have a little bit more room to the downside. So as we can see, and as we were talking about in the previous videos over the weekend, we basically were looking at this area down here as an triangle, essentially an ABCDE, with E breaking to the upside into the typical wave 4 retracement zone, which was 22,572 to 22,759. Okay, we've already met that minimum requirement. So my expectation here is that we do not push back up higher than our existing high. Instead, we slowly work our way to the downside. Now, it can be that this turns into an impulsive structure, and we probably might extend if that is the case, or it's a diagonal structure, which is one that I think is unfortunately probably the one that's more than likely going to play out. It'll be the one that's probably more volatile and very difficult for many people to understand exactly what is going on. Essentially, based on the highs that we've had, we are expecting a move down towards $21,555 to $21,808. Essentially, this is the area that most typically a wave 5 would end up in unless we have an overextension. The overextension would essentially be some kind of bigger 5-wave structure like so that would take us down a little bit deeper than we were expecting it to. But for the most part, this is where we would typically expect Bitcoin to kind of land and end up. Now, in order for this to be prevented, in order to prevent us moving down into this 5th wave low point, we would obviously have to push up higher, and we'd have to push up higher than the low of our wave 1. That would basically happen right up here at $23,195.90. Anything higher than that on this Bitcoin USDT pair, then essentially, yeah, we could write this one off and say that it is not this that we are doing. In fact, it would just be a 3-wave structure with a slightly longer than expected wave 3 or wave C essentially. So for the most part, that would be kind of how you would look at it without that. So for the most part, yeah, it looks like this is something that we should be experiencing, but we know what would cause an invalidation, all that kind of stuff. Now, the thing with this is it can, of course, be an acknowledgement that we are either going to do a zigzag pattern or go completely impulsive to the downside. If you start with 5 waves, we end in 5 waves. There are only 2 patterns really that I'm focusing in on at the moment. One would be a 5, 3, 5, and then the second pattern would be a 5, 3, 5, 3, 5. Okay, the first one at the top here, this is what is called a zigzag pattern, and down at the bottom here, this is what is called an impulsive structure, an impulsive 5-wave pattern. Okay, so these are the 2 that we basically could see come to fruition through this structure coming down here. Okay, so all in all, that's kind of what we'll be expecting to kind of see play out for BTC. So yeah, keeping an eye on those. If we start with 5, we must end on 5. So taking a look at that, that's kind of where that sits. Now, from a smart money concepts point of view, also see the ranging market down at the bottom. Essentially, we are ranging between 2 key levels. These are slightly on the higher side now and on the lower side, so basically 21,971 and 22,662.09. So you can see that we are essentially, if I move this across here, stuck in this little range. Now, the positives when it comes to smart money concepts is we did have a break of structure, or more specifically, as I like to think of it, a CTS, which would be a continuation of the structure. We're continuing our pattern to the downside, and that kind of confirms it. This is after the change of characteristic as well, so all that's looking good. So this ranging market here isn't bothering me too much. All it is really doing is telling us that we are waiting for bigger players to kind of come in and push that market back down, and we also have liquidity in this range. Now, essentially, what we'll think about here is this is a big reset. It's allowing our stochastic RSIs to get reset and allow us to continue our move to the downside. So this is unfortunate for the bulls, in my opinion. I do think the next directional move will be to the downside. And that's not to say that we can't have some minor movements to the upside, but we'll see which one of these kind of gets broken to the upside or to the downside, essentially out of these yellow ranges. But I think on the bigger macro piece, we should be thinking down, even if we do temporarily come and retest those highs at 22,662. Essentially, we should be looking for that move to the downside. Now, we do have a weak low, so expect that to kind of get hit pretty hard. And we can see at the moment, we're finding some kind of buying pressure right here on the internal order block, right within a discounted range as well. So again, I think we're going to chew through this liquidity that sits down here, and then we're going to pull back down even further. And for the most part, our hourly has a little bit of growth to it to the upside, so I'm not too concerned there. On the 4-hour, we have become overbought, so we're looking for a bigger move to the downside. You can see that we haven't reached a discounted range on the 4-hour chart. We've lost the equilibrium area as well. We can see that we had break of structure, break of structure, break of structure, break of structure, and so we are looking very continuous to the downside here. Although we do have a positive break of structure on the slightly higher time frame, we could potentially be seeing bigger reversals overall. Now, as I zoom out, you can of course acknowledge that we've got a lot of fair value gaps or imbalances in the order books that need to get filled out on this 4-hour chart. So for Bitcoin here, we are looking bearish, not bullish, in my humble opinion. Now, we do have some positivity on the 8-hour. That is of course in an oversold status, so we can see this one move up quite a bit if we needed to. I'm not expecting that. Again, you can see the change of characteristic and the break of structure to the downside, and we can of course acknowledge that we do have this gap to also be filled. On the daily chart, we are also in a very similar situation in an oversold area, but we are down here, and we can stay down here for a bit longer if we needed to. So I'm not going to be looking at this daily chart thinking that we are going to be moving up rapidly before moving down. But a retest of some of these other areas of liquidity, such as this order block up here for selling, it might be something that we do maybe see. That will be pushing 23k though, but I don't think we're there yet. I think essentially we have to move down and then we can move on up, and what we mean by that is basically complete this 5th wave to the downside and then move up into that liquidity under a 3-wave structure, and then come back down again afterwards. Okay, like I said, a zigzag pattern would be a 5 waves down, 3 waves up, 5 waves down, and I think that's kind of what we're seeing here within these larger timeframes as well on the smart money concept side of things. So for the most part, it does look like BTC has some more volatility to be experienced, and although we're in this really boring ranging market, expectation should be that we do have that little bit pull to the downside before we have that move back up just a fraction again before we continue our move to the downside. A revisit of around $23,000 I think is an area that could actually tick a lot of boxes, considering we do have this gap that was left behind here that hasn't really been filled. Let me show you what that looks like. It hasn't been marked up by smart money concepts indicated by 𝗕𝗓𝗪, but this area is also an area of interest to me. This is basically 22,454 and 23,398. This is a gap, an imbalance in the order block, in order books that hasn't been rectified yet. So price expectation would be that it would move up there eventually and take care of that situation. So overall, everything's looking okay for Bitcoin. Essentially, part of what we've been talking about for a while is a nice healthy correction at the moment. There's nothing terribly too alarming at this kind of scale here on the kind of hourly, 4-hourly, daily charts. They're all looking reasonably okay, but we should be concerned over a bigger macro pullback and the economic climate, which is not looking overly promising at the moment. So we can of course acknowledge that the stochastic RSI is only going to show us the strength of movements, could lead us down the wrong garden path on the daily chart or the 8-hour chart, for example. The bigger macros are pretty clear though. The weekly is overbought, and that does line up quite nicely with the bigger economic crisis that is going on in the world. So a bigger pullback on that kind of time frame could be something that we see at some point in the near future for BTC. I'm going to leave the video right there though. If you found it useful and informative, hit that like button. Do appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications. Join us down in Discord if you haven't done so already. If you're looking for more information on Elliott Wave theory or smart money concepts, check out 𝗕𝗘𝗪𝗔𝗥𝗠𝗘𝗥𝗦, linked in the description below. Until the next video though, guys, have a fantastic day.